Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. If you have joined us before, you'll know what I'm going to ask now. Use the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. I'm in Seattle. Gil's in the UK. Hetty's in New York. Halifax, Nova Scotia. Welcome, Chris. We'll give it a few minutes here, or a few seconds here, and then we'll officially get started. We'll let a few more of you tune in. Catherine from London. Already an international crew for our talk. Thank you for being here. San Diego, Heather, welcome. All right. All right, I know more people will join us as we go here, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I'm Laura Hamilton. I have a bookshop in Seattle, Washington called Book Larder. We have a kitchen in our space, and in more normal times, we do a lot of cooking classes and author talks in the space. But we, for the time being, have taken these talks to Zoom. And actually, once we can do things in person again, we'll probably continue to do these because it's been really marvelous. We've been able to do events like the one today, where we are welcoming an author in another country, an interviewer in another city, and all of you who are joining us from all over the country and even the world. So thank you so much for being here. I am so delighted to welcome Gil Mellor. He is the author of, most recently, this incredible book, Root, Stem, Leaf, Flower. Longtime fan of Gil's, as I know, I'm sure many of you are. This latest book, in fact, Gil has just been nominated for a Guild of Food Writers Award for this book. And so we are just delighted to have him here today. He's going to be in conversation with Hetty McKinnon, longtime friend of Book Larder and an author herself. They are going to talk about the book. They are, of course, going to leave time for questions. So if you could just leave questions that you have for Gil in the Q&A button, just tap that, type your question in, and that will make it a little easier for Hetty to manage those. The book is, of course, available at booklarder.com. It is actually currently sold out in the US. We have just a few copies available on the website, and then we will be shipping more of them as soon as we have them a little bit later in the summer. So I think that's all that I have for now. So welcome, Gil Mellor and Hetty McKinnon.
Hi, thank you, Laura.
Hi there, Laura. Hi.
Thank you. Hey, Gil.
Hi,
Gil, tell us where you are. I want everyone to know where you are. I was just saying, it looks like a really cool place you've got there.
Yeah. Well, I'm in the studio in the garden, and the garden is in the southwest of England, down just on the border between the county of Devon and Dorset.
Oh, nice. Near the water.
Yeah, we're very close to the coast. It's a very nice place. I grew up here, and I'm still here. So
Wow, it must be good then if you're still
that's
there.
how nice it is. Yeah, exactly.
Well, congratulations on Root, Stem, Leaf, Flower. Finally out in the US.
Yeah.
It was released sometime last year in the haze of 2020, and I'm assuming that you didn't get to do a lot of press for it when it came out.
No, I didn't. I mean, I sort of just fell into the sort of new format of publicizing things in a sort of digital realm, really. So with my last books, obviously, I had sort of gone on the road to an extent and traveled around parts of the UK promoting my books and meeting people firsthand. And as Lara said, going into bookshops and doing demonstrations and yes, just sort of putting the word out there face to face. But obviously, in light of all that's happened, yes, it was very much sort of promoting it from home, which I didn't actually mind. it meant it meant that actually I didn't have to sort of travel so much,
Hmm.
because sometimes you go to a bookshop, it could be at the other end of the country, you turn up for an
Yeah,
hour, um, and it's wonderful, but it can take a couple of days out of your
yeah,
sort of schedule. Um,
yeah.
and the
It's two very different experiences. I don't think that you can say launching a book in person is any better or worse. It's just different, right? So,
yeah,
um, yeah.
yeah, it's certainly different. I mean, what I found quite interesting was that I'd turn up to a little bookshop, and there might be 40 or 50 people there to hear my talk. But if I went on to do a live Instagram chat about the book, there might be 150 people there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so you sort of suddenly reaching this a whole new audience that
Hmm.
maybe couldn't get to you in the past. So it's definitely changed the sort of the geography of
Yeah,
how authors actually work and how they promote
yeah.
their projects.
And Book Larder can have you here today, which is amazing. Um,
It really
Now,
is.
I wanted to, I think I wanted to start by kind of like a Gil Mellor 101, like a primer for people who may not have been following you from the very beginning. Um, I think most of us know your River Cottage
Sure.
history. So, do you want to just tell us a little bit about how you got started in food?
Yeah, of course. So, as I said, I grew up down here in the southwest of England, in Dorset, which is a very beautiful county. Um, I'm one of three kids, and my mum was a fantastic cook. So we grew up eating really well, but I was never really uh, planning to be a cook.
Mm,
I wasn't in that world at all. But we certainly enjoyed good food, and it was the kitchen was the sort of heart of the home. Um, I actually was studying at college to do photography and art history and
mhm,
fine art, but when when I was 18, when I was still at college, I met my now wife Alice, and we had our first daughter. So we were both very young. I was I was just 18, um,
wow.
and I had to get a job, um,
Mhm,
just to start earning some money and pay for the little flat that we'd moved into with our daughter. And I fell into work in a kitchen,
mhm,
and it didn't come naturally cooking initially, but I certainly knew from growing up what good food tasted like, and my mum had sort of instilled in me this sort of understanding of flavor um, and simple good sort of home cooking.
mhm,
um, and it wasn't long before I was actually producing some quite good food, and actually really enjoying this sort of newfound
mm.
passion, and earning some money at the same time. And it really all started there. Uh,
Yeah.
I
So,
went
were the flavors that you grew up with, was that influencing how you cooked professionally?
Well, yeah, I think it certainly did. So the food that I grew up with was sort of it wasn't elaborate, it wasn't sort of
Mm,
fine cuisine. It was just very delicious home cooked food, as I say. Fish pies and salads and interesting soups and roast meat and lots of vegetables. My dad had a little vegetable garden.
mm,
Um, they were very keen on, yes, getting together around the table and sharing food together as a family, and then beyond that with friends. So the weekends would quite often um, be sort of more celebratory in terms of food, and there'd be lots of people coming round. So it was definitely the sort of focus of the way we spent time.
Yeah.
So yes, it had a big bearing on how I cook and how I started out.
Yeah. It already sounds like from a very young age you had a connection to the land. You're talking about your dad having the, you know, the vegetable garden, and it kind of makes really a lot of sense how your career has gone. I wanted to, do you have a book in front of you or not? Do you have your book there?
I've got the copy of the book, yes,
Oh,
just to
yes, you've got it.
remind me exactly what we're talking about.
We're talking about this book here. I think your introduction is so beautiful and melodic, like the way you talk about the land. It's just really transportative. You know, I feel like I don't know if I've been to Dorset, actually, maybe not. I used to live in England for a while, but it's just so vivid. The second paragraph, I was going to read it, but I wondered if you wanted to read it, or some
Yes.
of it anyway. It's the one about the gooseberries. It's just
Yes. Okay.
very beautiful, and it really sets up the premise for your book.
Oh, sure. Well, let me.
Well, you can read some of it. It's a long paragraph.
No, I can do that. When I close my eyes and taste gooseberries just as they are, I know certain things will happen around me. The ash trees will finally be in leaf, and the buzzards will come home. I want to pick tarragon and buy vinegar and start swimming in the sea again. The taste will remind me of elderflower, and when the white sprays die, blackcurrants. In a way, eating a gooseberry is like being taken at light speed through a network of memories linking happiness, anticipation, loss, and longing. It will have been a year since I last experienced these feelings, and it will be another until I feel them again. Although things may have changed by then, and the gooseberry may connect me to a new aspect of life, its taste will always anchor me to the natural world and to a time and a place. Sometimes I think the most interesting thing about an ingredient is not the ingredient itself.
It's so beautiful, Gil. It's so beautiful, and it's something that I definitely relate to in many ways,
sure
even though I have probably not even I've never had this experience myself, but that connection to the memories of what food provides us is just really beautiful. What is this a particular memory you've written about, or is it kind of a collection of many memories?
Yeah, Hetty, I think you're right. It's a sort of collection of many memories. It's a sort of overview of how sometimes an ingredient or many ingredients can take us to a place or remind us of a particular encounter, or just sort of transport us
Yeah,
back home, or to your grandmother's house, or
yeah,
to the to the farmer's field where you were stealing the the parsley or whatever it
yeah,
was. The senses, and I speak particularly about taste. It's such a sort of strong
yeah,
poignant sense that really sparks all sorts of emotions and memory. So that was
yeah,
the idea behind that sort of paragraph.
yeah.
But
I
I think,
absolutely agree with you. I mean, I think I talk about this to a lot of people. Like I'm always searching for the apricots of my youth,
yeah,
and I don't even know what that is, but it relates to this one thing that is very bright in my memory. My dad worked at the produce markets,
right,
and he'd just bring home in Sydney and just bring home the most beautiful fruit, like fresh from all the vendors there. And
Wow.
And there was these like summer days in Sydney when I would just basically, all I remember was eating these apricots. And to me, in my mind, they are the most wonderful apricots, bursting with flavor, and being at home with my parents. But I don't even know if they were that good, to be completely honest. But I hold on to that memory with everything that I have. That I'm still constantly searching, and I may never find that again. But that's the power of like the memories that food conjures. So I think that,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think it's such a beautiful passage.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you to point that out. It was fun writing it. But as you'll well know, these, it doesn't just sort of flow out per se. It takes time to sort of build up the picture in when you're introducing a story or a recipe book.
Yeah.
You've only got a small, in this case, not loads of pages to do it in.
Yeah.
That's the sort of interesting challenge that I find. It's sort of conveying the essence of what you want to say in quite a short space.
Yeah. Well, you've done a good job. Do you have a favorite season in terms of, root, stem, flowers, and leaves?
Oh, golly. Well, I probably do, and I don't. What I found over the years, and cooking seasonally, I found that at the end of each sort of culinary season, I'm sort of done with it, and I'm looking forward to the next one. So, autumn is a wonderful time of year. It's probably one of my favorites, but after a long hard winter, when spring comes around, you feel a real sense of sort of elation and relief, and all those things that you haven't cooked or tasted or shared with people, are growing again. That's the joy of cooking seasonally, that it sort of makes things that so much more special. And that's one of the, that even in that paragraph that I just read, that's what I'm trying to sort of get across, is that the gooseberry is it's only got a short season, and actually it's one of the few soft fruits that you cannot really buy out of season, not like raspberries, strawberries, and blueberries and all that sort of thing. So it really is something that comes once a year, and that makes it a real treat.
Yeah, the transience of it makes it really special, doesn't it? And you just want to. It's like in New York right now, everyone is obsessed with ramps. Do you have ramps in the UK? It's kind of like a wild garlic.
Oh yeah,
and it comes very transiently in New York, and when it does, everybody's making ramp pesto and everyone's doing ramp galettes, and so it's all the rage right now. But I do love that. I love the little surprises that the seasons bring, and I mean, living in the city, we're very lucky to have that. And that's one thing I did want to ask you is, like, if we live in the city and we want to live, we want to grow our own food, or want to have like establish a little veggie something somewhere on a windowsill, do you have like little tips on how we can do that? Well, you've never lived in the city, have you?
I must admit, I haven't lived in the city. I've always been a sort of country boy, but of course, if you want to do something, there are ways of doing it, and city life is obviously very different to country life in terms of how much space you have around you, and if you have space at all. But one of the things that I always enjoy doing is growing herbs, because they can be grown in pots, and as you referenced, maybe even on the windowsill, and they can really improve the flavor of your food. They can improve your cooking so much. A handful of parsley or tarragon, or some freshly chopped dill on some fish, or on a salad, or on a piece of grilled meat. Those are things you can grow quite easily, but they sort of, they're greater than the sum of their parts, in the sense that you really sort of bring your food to life. And I cook with herbs all the time. Beyond that, if you've got a bit more space, then there's all sorts of ways you can sort of garden in a sort of urban environment. There's lots of people doing that, and specialize in that sort of vertical gardening, and small space urban gardening. I was looking at a book. I was flicking through books earlier online, and one came up that was called "Grow All the Food You Can Eat in 3 Square Feet."
Oh, wow.
That was the title of the book. And I thought that, well, if that's actually real, then blimey, that's fantastic.
That's amazing. I'll be doing that. Was it Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall who actually went around planting in median strips on highways and stuff? I think I saw that on one of his shows like a very long time ago. I actually did that. I did that in Sydney. I used to have a garden.
Cool.
Yeah, basically.
Well, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. If we can find, we can garden anyway. Yeah. I mean, much of this book is about, it's such a modern book. I mean, much of it is about adopting a more sustainable diet and lifestyle. But a lot of us kind of don't know where to start. We hear this a lot about, let's be more sustainable, but how do you actually start doing that? I guess particularly with food, what are your kind of tips on where we would start doing that? I know the answer to this, but I want you to explain it your way.
I'm sure. Well, it's interesting that you should ask that, because I found it quite difficult to get the pitch and tone of the book just right, because I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan, but I really do enjoy eating lots of fruit and vegetables. And over the years, the way I eat has definitely shifted to a more a pattern of a sort of routine, in that throughout the week we're eating a lot more veg. I didn't feel sort of qualified to write a really heavy book about the ethics of doing things one way or another, because it's such a hugely complicated field. The food choices we make ourselves are complicated, but telling people how to make food choices, I feel, is quite a responsibility. So that the way the book reads, I hope, is quite gentle in that sense. So it was just really about sort of encouraging people to maybe think about where the ingredients they're eating are coming from, and the impact that those ingredients have on our communities, and the environment, and the sort of natural world, because it's quite easy to see that some of the food that we eat is sort of hugely damaging to our environment. So yeah, I thought that the best way to go about it is to make some really delicious recipes that celebrate
Yeah.
veg, and inspire people to make some small changes to the way they eat, purely through sort of enticing them into
Yeah.
a world full of sort of interesting flavors and textures and colors, and
Yeah.
that was the onus was on that. So yes, I think if people do want to make a change, if they're aware of what they're eating, and are interested in where food comes from, and they're interested in sort of the state of the oceans, and the animal welfare, and all those things that are involved in the food choices that we make, then
Yeah.
opting to eat more sort of locally grown, and if possible organic fruit and vegetables is a fairly safe bet,
Yeah.
in terms of having a small impact, as tiny as that might be.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think and I think you've done that in this book. You really like celebrate, beautiful produce, and that's what it's more about. I do find, like, I've been a vegetarian for many decades,
Right.
and I don't really talk about it that much. Like, my books are not like, they are, they're all vegetarian, but it's not like I've got vegetarian on the title,
Sure.
For me, it's also like similar to you. It's about helping people see how vegetables can be at the center of the plate, but can be really delicious without, all the other stuff that's involved, without the politics. Because, I'm not qualified to make those, to lecture people about that. But what I really want to is just really show people like what they're getting out of, these beautiful fresh things, rather than what they're missing out on. And I think that's what labels do. That labels make people think they're missing out on something. So I think you've done that really beautifully in this book. What I wanted to know, what you eat at home. What do you cook for your own family, and what do your kids like?
Gosh, we eat all sorts of different things, to be honest with you.
Do
So,
they eat the recipes that you're testing?
oh well, they do. Yeah, they do. Well, my children are a bit more grown up now. So my eldest daughter is 22, and
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah, that's the one. That's Isla, who we had
Wow.
when I was very young, and my other daughter is 16. So their palates have sort of developed a bit more recently, and they aren't as fussy as they used to be. But it's strange because when they were younger, they for a chef's daughter for chef's daughters, they were actually quite picky about what they would eat, and I think it was because I'd scared them with some of the things I would prepare, and some of the
Like
cooking.
what? What did you scare them with?
Well, just some of the cooking that I was known for at River Cottage, and that sort of approach, that sort of nose to tail approach
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to cooking. They became sort of distrustful of what I was serving them. And they'd always be suspicious. If we were just having some sausages or so, they'd think it was squirrel sausages, or it'd be like lamb would be goat, or just that they're very children are very sort of affected by their sort of peers, and what's sort of conventional and what's normal to eat. And it took some sort of swaying, but now we eat a sort of very normal, relatively healthy diet, from day to day. I mean, as I say, in the week, we eat a lot more veg. Last night, for instance, I say that last night we didn't we didn't eat veg. I did a sort of a very delicious, simple sort of chicken curry with some brown rice and some coriander, but it was great. I've changed the way I'm sort of approaching curries recently.
Oh yeah,
And
how so?
well, for years I've been sort of falling back on sort of old, sort of familiar approaches to, you know, sort of tomato. The way I build them is sort of, you know, I'll make a spice paste, ginger and garlic, and toast my spices, and I'll tend to make a sort of, you know, quite punchy spice paste. Then I'll fry onions, and then I'll, you know, if we're having a sort of meat based curry, I'd brown the meat and the spice paste, and then maybe sort of chop tomatoes, and, you know, then maybe coconut. It's sort of fairly obvious way of going about it, because you know, I haven't traveled extensively, and I haven't eaten authentic Indian food, for instance. I
But
must
the
admit.
UK has such a culture of, you know, the curry is
No, I
kind of
know
your
that, and
national.
I know, and you're quite right. But I've just, so the curry that I made last night was, it was just onions and loads of toasted spices, but left very coarse.
Right.
Loads of onions, brown the chicken stock. It's very, very loose, sort of liquidy sauce, very intense, delicious, cooked until the chicken was sort of tender. Lots of cardamom,
Oh, nice.
turmeric, bay, butter at the end, or, you know, obviously,
And no
probably.
coconut milk?
No, no, I must
Yeah.
admit. Anyway, I'm
Yeah.
sort of digressing.
No, I think it's interesting. I think it's always a thing that I think people are really interested to see what chefs and cookbook authors eat at home.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I
Well,
think that sounds complicated doing as a nightly meal or your spice pasting. And I'm actually very lazy at home when I'm not developing recipes. I just, you know, just take a lot of shortcuts.
well, please don't get me wrong. I'm
I'm
exactly the same.
impressed.
No. I'm exactly the same. And sometimes, if if I've been cooking all day, last thing I want to do is sort of cook a complicated meal.
Mm.
But then there's, you know, as you'll well know, there's so much joy to be had in sort of taking the time to cook something nice, even if it takes you, you know, it takes you away from other things. When you actually sit down to eat the food, it's always lovely.
Yeah.
On the weekends, we tend to go sort of a bit more, I don't know, you know, sort of down the pizza road, or
Yeah.
we're
Do you
cooking.
make the pizza or do you order the pizza? You
Oh
make the
no,
pizza.
no, make the pizza.
When you say pizza, and I'm thinking, oh, does he order it online? Does he like?
Oh, no.
So
But
you're still
pizza's,
making it.
oh yeah.
That's amazing. I wanted to actually talk. This book is like so beautiful, like the way it's designed. Can we geek out a little bit about design? Because you were a ex-photographer and I'm a frustrated art director. So I wanted to, the chapter openers, what are these? Are these photos or are
No,
they paintings? What's
yeah,
going on
well,
here? Can
no,
you tell me about those?
I can indeed. So we Andrew Montgomery, who I've worked with for many years, and I've worked with on all my books, is an exceptionally talented photographer, and
Mm-hmm.
he and I have always set ourselves a challenge of trying to do something slightly different in our books, and we wanted to try and capture vegetables through a sort of different lens, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So are
all
these photos?
Well, they are not photos, no. And actually, we, in the first sort of 6 months of the book coming out, everyone was asking, editors, publishers, photographers, asking us how we did them. How did you create that? How did you do that? Is it a photograph? And we were like, well, to be honest with you, we're just not going to tell you. We're going to keep it to.
Oh, that's a secret.
It's not a secret because it's been out for so long. I can probably tell you. But what we ended up doing to try and make this feel different and look different and create some atmosphere and depth, rather than just a picture of a tomato, which so often come across, or a lovely bunch of carrots or whatever, was to take these images. And we had this really old scanner, like a flatbed scanner.
Yes.
And what we do was we took this old sheet of sort of knackered old mossy glass, and we put that over the and then we put the various fruits and vegetables onto that, and then we sort of covered them up and scanned them, and lo and behold, out came sort of insane images, some of which are really sort of ethereal and spooky. And
I'm shocked. So is this a screen, your front papers?
Oh no!
Did you put a screen over it?
No, that's something different. That is a photograph, but it's through the skin of a polytunnel.
Oh my gosh!
You know what I mean? The sort of it's not plastic; it's sort of mesh covering.
Right. Yeah, that's what it looks like.
And you can just see through to some of the plants growing inside. But I just thought that the pattern on the mesh, the sort of moss and the algae and the sort of weather and the markings were very beautiful.
It's so beautiful, Gil. Like I think it was the first thing I looked at, and I couldn't even get beyond those for a long time, because it's just, yeah, like you said, I was sitting here for a long time trying to work out what it was. Is this a photo?
Did you work it out?
No, of course not. No. I mean, I thought that there was some sort of treatment, like you'd taken a photo and did something to it digitally.
What we thought people would assume was that it would just been photoshopped. Like anyone can do on their phone, you can grind up a picture or distress it, but there's no effects at all. That was the last thing we would do, is sort of sort of edit a picture to make it look. It was captured just through a sort of analog way, if you like. But
I love analog. My most recent book was all shot on film, so I get it.
Oh well, I haven't done that, but Andrew uses this old Mamiya medium format camera.
Yeah, they're amazing.
With a digital back.
Yeah,
it's a brilliant camera, massive, chunky old thing.
Yeah.
Constantly breaking down. He's got like 3 or 4 bodies and loads of lenses, and there has been occasion where all 3 bodies have broken and don't work. And bless him, he sends it off to Germany to be fixed, because it's just such a beautiful piece of kit, and the images they're so different, to sort of, although it is digital, it's sort of not, in a way.
It's not. I mean, I think that a lot of professional photographers say to me, oh, I spend a lot of time trying to make my digital photos look like film. And I was like, well, you can just use a film camera, because they still exist. It's a different process, but it's possible. And I think this, the creative process behind a book is pretty much my favorite bit, and it sounds like you really enjoy it too, because it's about storytelling, isn't it? It's about bringing a story together, and the visuals is a huge part of the story. The
Absolutely.
the other thing that I really love is the poetry. There's poetry in this book, and you've wrote. I don't know if you've written it. So, did you write the poetry?
Yeah. I've written
Oh.
all the poems. There's a few poems in some of my other books too. Yeah, I've always liked to write poems. I wrote poems as a child, and I find it quite interesting to condense lots of sort of ideas into just a few words and
Mm,
make something sort of beautiful,
yeah, they're
if possible.
beautiful. I'm gonna.
Or go on. Yeah, sorry.
No, I was going to read the one about rhubarb. Unless you want to read it, they might like your accent better.
No, go on. Go on.
So rhubarb, she hugs by every day, scratching round and about, filling her motherly beak. I don't say much if she's singing. I simply listen and wonder if we'll always be friends.
Yeah.
That's rather lovely towards your old friend rhubarb.
I know. So it was a bit funny. I thought that maybe it would sort of lighten the feel of the book to give these different vegetables a voice.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, peppered through the book are these little sort of prose from
Yeah.
the vegetables themselves, talking about one thing or another, that what they're up to, or how they think the world is going, or how much they're looking forward to being cooked and eaten or not.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I think vegetables definitely have a personality. And
yeah,
like, some are headstrong, some are like delicate, some are friends
yeah.
like rhubarb.
There's
I just
one. My
haven't.
favorite one is I'll read it to you. Hang on.
Yeah, which one's your favorite?
It's it's one of my favorites is the artichoke. Um,
Oh,
yes, it's the globe artichoke.
yes. I think I
Um,
went past that. Yeah.
it's page 67.
7. Okay.
This one here.
Oh my God, look at that picture. Wow.
And the poem goes, called Artichoke.
Yeah.
I lost a god today from the parish of our garden. Now everything wilds at half-mast. All I ask is to follow him to the kitchen and for someone to eat my heart. So that's an artichoke
You're
that wants
amazing.
to be
Seriously.
picked. It's a
You're
bit
very
mad,
clever.
really, but it was fun doing it. And as I say, it sort of just brought the book down to earth a bit and kept the sort of the fun there in a way. Well, maybe for me,
It's
everyone else.
wonderful. I think I can feel a poetry book coming up.
Yeah.
You've got the gift. Now I'm looking. I'm just going to see if there's any questions. I think I saw a few things pop up. Okay. So if anyone's got questions, they can pop them in the Q&A. I'm going to. So, Gil, you have a super fan. One of my very good friends, Chris. You might know. I think she may have reviewed your book last year. She's a book reviewer.
Yes.
She's Ship Shape Eat Worthy, and she sent me
Yes.
a bunch of questions. So I'm gonna let her jump the queue because she was
Oh,
so
wow.
excited that I was
Oh,
talking to you.
that's
And
amazing. And I would just like, yes, to personally thank Chris for being such a wonderful supporting voice from across the sea. It's so kind. And
she
I
is.
really appreciate that.
She's a huge fan, but also she really cooks from people's books. So she is not saying it just to say it. She actually has recommended like a bunch of your recipes, and she's very generous with her time and her commitment to authors. So yeah, we love you, Chris. But Chris
Yeah,
had some
thank you.
questions. She wanted to know how you develop your flavor profiles? Are they informed through practical knowledge, like chefy stuff, or something more innate, like what your mum or your dad or your grandparents cooked? I think you kind of touched on that earlier, but yeah, do you have an answer for that?
Well, one way I do it is literally through sort of how things that grow together sort of go together, so that the sort of affiliation between two seasonal ingredients.
Yeah.
Quite often in nature, it just works. So one of the joys of seasonal cooking is taking two different things and putting them together, and with a little bit of sort of foresight and perhaps some prior experience, it's quite easy to see that, you know, that combination will work and perhaps that one won't. What could I give you an example of? So blueberries and lavender, for example. Blueberries, when the lavender is in flower, in the UK, blueberries are being picked.
Okay.
And it's a combination that I hadn't actually tried before or tasted in or seen anywhere else, but I just felt that fruity sort of sweet, fruity blueberry quality would sit with the sort of very fragrant, sort of bitter flavor that you get from lavender, and we grow lavender at the front of the house, and there it was. I had some blueberries, and I tried that, and it sort of was completely eye-opening. Sometimes it can just be as simple as seeing something and then having a memory about, you know, something else that is connected with it, maybe not then and there, but from the past, and putting them together. I like to cook like that, and I feel that with most of my recipes, that's how they come about. It's very unusual that I will sort of pre-plan too much when it comes to recipe development. And in fact, between you and I, a lot of the recipes that I end up putting together or that end up getting published will be made on the day. They won't be tested and sort of picked apart and tried again, because for the most part they're quite simple. But also, if you just do it then and there, it can feel more authentic and real. And, you know, there's loads of pictures in this book that I made, and we shot them because they were just great, and I knew they'd be good. And that's the way I like to work. You know, quite often you'll get, you know, publishers will commission a book and they'll want a manuscript. You know, they'll want a manuscript before you even start shooting. Yeah. And that God bless my publisher, Sarah Lavelle, because she's been so great in terms of letting me do the books the way I want to do them.
And that's really important in the book making process, because also every author is different and likes to work in their own way. I'm a bit more like you too, actually. Myself and my publisher agree via text. This is what I'm doing, and she says, "Okay, see you in a year," and it happens.
That's great. That's lovely, isn't it?
It is, and I think that a great publisher and editor realizes that's what their author needs, and every author needs something different. But that's great. It's cool to see that you do that too. There's some other questions. I want to get to these before we run out of time. From Tom from Salt Onion Moon is asking, can you talk about how your cooking has changed? It seems like red meat figured more prominently early on, and now veg and fish seems to figure more prominently. What prompted this shift?
Well, I think anyone who works in my industry, the way they cook changes. It's just natural for you to be into cooking one dish and then you'll slowly change to another. It's also very sort of natural to have a sort of conscientious shift on the way you feel about food and how it's produced and what you should be eating and what you shouldn't. And the more you learn about these aspects of food production, the more it affects the way you cook and what you like to eat. And yes, it's been just a sort of natural, slow sort of change into finding sort of happiness eating lots of vegetables and occasionally fish and meat as and when I can get some really nice stuff from some of the local farmers around here. Yes, it just comes through time. The way we cook evolves and changes, in the same way the way we think about everything sort of changes, evolves. It's not a sort of it is a sort of conscious decision, but it's more gradual and slow and
evolution, isn't it? Evolution.
Yeah, it is. But I certainly enjoy eating meat and cooking it. I just am very particular about where it comes from, and I understand that in the sort of society that we live in, and globally, it is actually better to eat more vegetables and less meat. It's just the way it is. You can't argue with that. It can't be denied. It's better for our health. It's better for the planet.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just the simple answer, isn't it?
And there's lots of layers to that, and there's lots of opinions and arguments for and against that. But when it comes to it, less meat, more plants.
Yeah,
is the only way forward.
Yeah, I agree.
But also support. But if your food choices support people, farmers who are producing meat or fishers who are catching fish in the right way, then that is also having a beneficial impact.
Definitely. Thank you for that. Gianna asks, Gianna asks, what is your most requested for dish by family and friends? Like, i.e., what do you bring to gatherings at holidays and cookouts? Cookouts or barbecue? I'm translating for you.
I love a cookout. Well, one of the dishes that my family really love, and it's something that we all ate as children that my mum cooked, was a pasta dish. It was a very simple spaghetti with tomato, with a simple tomato sauce, served alongside breaded chicken escalopes. The combination of the sort of crispy fried breaded chicken and the tomato pasta and loads of parmesan is really good. So sometimes we'll have that, and the girls really like it, and for some reason it's just with the entire family. My brother cooks it,
Oh,
My daughter
wow.
now cook it, and yes, my mum cooked it. We quite often cook outside. I'm a big fan of cooking outdoors, and in fact, I'm writing a book now about the joys of sort of being outside,
Oh,
and
yeah.
eating at the same time, whether you're
Yeah.
cooking or picnicking or you're you're just out having a nice walk and having a sound, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, we tend to do the most simple things over a fire.
Mm.
So down the beach isn't too far away from me, and one of the things we've been cooking recently is the sea kale
Oh,
that we
yes.
on the beach. And at the moment in May and the April and May, really, the sea kale's at its absolute best.
Yeah.
It's a wild plant that grows right round the coast of the UK, but only on certain beaches, and we've got lots of it. And it's really wonderful. It's amazing flavour, glorious
One of
texture.
the,
That's one, yeah.
yeah. Well, how
Um,
does it differ to normal kale?
yeah, extraordinarily different.
Yeah.
It's got these incredible, juicy, tender stems.
Mm.
They're almost as well. I would say they are as delicious as good asparagus. And
Mm-hmm.
then you've got these fleshy, sort of purple leaves when they're young,
Yeah.
that come off the stem.
Wow. That
And
sounds
then
incredible.
right now they flower, so they produce these lovely spears of broccoli almost. It's just like
Oh,
purple sprouts.
wow.
All we do is get a campfire going, and boil the sea kale in some seawater.
Yeah.
Just have it with butter and some eggs, and some bread, some sourdough.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's just beautiful.
Mm.
It's so crude, so simple, but so fantastic. It's not so much about what you're eating, even. It's about just the sort of process of being outside and
Yeah.
making a fire
Yeah.
and
It's the whole thing, isn't it?
the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. The whole thing. Okay. We've got like a few more minutes. Caroline wants to ask you about poetry. Which poets do you like? And which poets have inspired you over the years?
God, there's quite. I mean, one of the most sort of influential poets is an Irishman called Seamus Heaney,
Mm-hmm.
who I feel wrote about the land in the most sort of evocative and beautiful way. He made all sorts of sort of deep, poignant connections with place and people and land and farming and the rural life, which I found, very, very sort of captivating. And it is quite possible that his words and his approach sort of influenced some of what I've done in the past. Yeah,
Quite possible.
yeah.
I love that. I love when people bring up these other subjects that we'd never normally hear from you on, like poetry.
Oh, yeah.
It's joy. And here's Lara's back. Are we done, Lara? You
Yeah,
come to
if you
cut
have
us
one more
off.
question, that's absolutely fine to go with one more.
Should we do one more? I think this
Yeah.
one's interesting. Eden wants to know, do you use cookbooks? And if so, what are your favorites right now? And I think that's a nice way of ending it.
Oh, yes, that's a great one. I do use cookbooks, but not that often. Not to cook from anyway. I use them as more a tool for inspiration. I love flicking through them. I love to see what other cooks are doing, what's happening on the scene. You'll probably know what I mean. how things change and shift and move, and yeah, just what people are up to, because actually the world we work in is actually quite small, and now we can really see it because we're all connected in one way or another through social media and so forth. So it's fascinating to, work in an industry and be able to look at what everyone else is doing just by flicking through pages.
Yeah.
Which one am I looking at the moment? Well, I've just been lucky enough to get a copy of the new book by Honey and Co. Called Chasing Smoke. So
Wow.
I'm just starting to read that. I'm fascinated by cooking over fire anyway, and it's something that I love to do. And they've travelled extensively, looking at different approaches to cooking over fire in different cultures. So
that sounds wonderful.
That will be quite interesting to plough my way through. But I don't actually cook from them unless there's something that looks so good that I have to.
Yeah. Well, we'll all have to keep an eye out on the new Honey and Co. book.
Yeah.
And thank you.
No, I was going to say, we actually have an author talk with them scheduled on May 27th. They're going to be in conversation with Renee Erickson. So yeah.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. But before I hand over to Lara, I just wanted to thank you, Gil. This was such a fun conversation. And
thank you.
I loved all the topics that we covered. And thanks for having us, Lara. We love this book.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me and talk about it. It's very kind of you.
Anytime. Wish we had 2 hours.
Yeah.
I know, right? Totally. Hetty, the conversation was delightful. Thank you for doing all the work to make it happen, and really love the questions that you asked and all those things. Gil, thank you for reading impromptu as well.
Thanks for asking me to come on.
Like I said, we've recorded this, so it'll be on our YouTube channel within the next couple of days if you want to watch it again or share it with friends. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Have a good
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
morning.
Bye.
Bye.